So yesterday we discussed about services and basic observables. So some of the basics of that, and one of the other key topics which you would be most frequently being used is forms. So forms is we've already gone through this forms before, right? So it forms would basically take is where the user inputs some changes, or where the user interacts with our web page. So anyways, like regular forms, there are also Angular forms. In particular, just so that again, it's the same. It does the same. It has the same functionality. It is nothing different than the regular forms. Depending on what it actually does, it basically takes input from the user. Like user can enter some information and all of that. But there are different ways of the ways in which we actually accept input in Angular form is a little different. Again, coming to Angular form, there are two types of forms. One is reactive forms, and then one is template-driven forms. So there are two types of forms. Again, depending on situation, you may be using one or another type of form. And reactive forms, coming to reactive forms, are more structured. So if you have a class, right? If you want to bind to a class directly, you can use those reactive forms. On the other hand, template-driven forms are not that structured. And when we go into the examples, you would actually see what those are. Anyways, so these are less structured, and most of the changes are in the HTML page. And here, these are the changes, or the form is actually created in the TypeScript page. So that is the main difference. Actually, before going any further, I just want to ask you, do you have any questions from yesterday's class about any of the services or observables? This is one of the most commonly used thing in Angular, so it's important that you actually understand what is going on with this one. If something isn't, yeah. So, any questions regarding observables or regarding services?
No, Anvesh. Everything is good.
Okay. So another thing I want to ask is, do you know how to make a HTTP client calls or HTTP calls?
Yeah, HTTP calls. I mean, HTTP / www. You mean that?
No, HTTP calls are whenever you want to get some data from an external service. Right now, I've shown you where our component would make a call to the service, and the service would call something else, right? It can be a database, but most likely it would be an API. And API calls are basically nothing but HTTP calls. Those are the same ones. So when it's a HTTP call, you're trying to get some information, post, or put or delete. These are basic calls anyways. And depending on the situation, you would get one of the responses back. 200, right? 200 responses are success, and 400 is server error.
Page not found.
Client, yeah. And 500, there are different sort of errors, but 200 is success, and the rest of these are errors, depending on
the type of error.
Yeah, type of error. You are aware of this one, right? At least you know basically what these are,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I know.
Okay, cool. So yeah, usually whenever we have service calls, they would basically most of the time it would be to an API. Again, this is another reason why they do it is for security purpose. You don't want to expose any of your database calls directly in your web page. You want to make a call to another API which handles that. So anyway, so if you are familiar, then it's good. Basically, all the calls, whatever they make, they are API calls most of the time. But they can vary. Anyways, coming back to our, I've created a project basically. Right? It's an empty one, and let us try creating two components. One is for reactive, and another one is for template. And let's source and app. Yeah. So if I'm, so I want to create a form in, as we have discussed before, like basically a form would be, I would, let's say, let me create the class would be row, something like that. And also, sorry, I don't have Bootstrap. Okay, let me create a basic form, right? In form, I can have inputs, right? Like I can have, let's say I want to create a form where I want to enter some details about the course information, right? Let's say the type would be text, and ID would be course info, right? Like let's say course name, and also a label for that. And I would simply say for course name, and I would ask them to enter that info down here. Similar to that, if I want a few more details, like let's say course description. And also, let's say I want to know the time it takes for the course. If I have something as simple as that, now it's updated. Okay, I don't have anything in app component HTML, so that is why it's not showing me anything. So let us get this one from here and include it here. So we will actually see that. Sorry, I got a new keyboard. Shortcuts are a little different. So this isn't the best looking one, but let me create a break. Okay, something simple as this one, but in order to also for the user to, say you want to accept this or something, I would also have a button right at the end of it, which would be input, again, type of button, and or I can also have a button, either way. And here I would simply say it's of type submit, right? This is how we would actually do it regularly, or just give me 1 second. And that module part doesn't have Bootstrap. Okay. And the button, let me say submit details, right? Something simple as this one, right? This is how we would typically create a button or create a form. Again, this is not styled properly using Bootstrap, but once we do that, this may change. And if I want something to be required, I would simply say required. This field is required. The other one is required. Let's say also the time for the course is required. And it would simply say fill out these details since I mentioned this as a required field. This is of form type. Okay, that is how standard form works, right? But in an Angular application, that would be a little different. And in order to do that, the first thing you have to make sure is we have to actually import forms module into here. So that's the first thing. So I would simply say reactive forms module, and that's from Angular forms. I need to get that first, and also make sure that you include that in imports. And apart from reactive forms module, if I want to develop a template-driven form, I need the regular forms module as well. So since I want to also explain that here, I would include that as well. So I have both of these. So first thing, you have to make sure that you've imported that forms module, reactive forms module, if I'm trying to create a reactive form. Again, as I explained you before, the main reason for using a reactive form is these are structured. And if I create any class, like let's say like a course class or something, I can directly bind that to our form easily. And that is one of the things of structured programming, right? Like, why do we actually do programming? To make things more structured. So anyway, so let me call this is a course form. The first thing you have to declare again is it's a course form, and it's of type form group. Again, make sure that you import that. The form group actually defines what are all the things in the form. Like, for example, in our case, we have a form which has 3 values, right? One is course name, another one is course description, and time for the course. So form group actually defines what actually goes into our form. And that is what we would be doing. And we have to initialize that form in ng-on init. So before that, let me create another method, private init form. And this is like a standard practice they would do. Like whenever we want to use a form, just create a form group and also initialize the form. In order to initialize the form, first thing is I will create that to start. Also call that on ng init. Okay, what does actually go in this init form, right? I want to. It's initializing the form is similar to instantiating any variable, right? Whenever we want to instantiate a variable, I would, let's say if I want to instantiate a number, I would simply say num is of type number, right? Equal to new number. If I want to instantiate that. That is one way of doing it. But in a similar way, if I want to instantiate a form, this is how I would do it. So first thing, I need to declare it is of form group type. Okay. Next one is I have to mention what are all the things which actually go into the form. The start course form equal to it's of type form group. And here I have to specify all the controls I have in our form. So let's say going back to our form again, right? This is a reactive form. I have a course name, course description, and time for a course. So it's the first one is course name, right? And everything in the form group is a form control, right? This, let me show you. Down here, when I create a form, that would be of type form group. And all the controls. Let me say I have a text box or submit button or different input types. All of those should be in this form group, and all of those are of type form control. So if I create an input of type text, right, that is a form control. Let's say I'm creating course name, right? That should be declared as a form control. It goes similarly to any other variable or any other tag within our form is of type form control. Anyways, not all of them, but the ones which we actually want to get the input from. Like for example, in here, I want to get input from. I want to know whatever the user entered in this text box. So, okay, anyways, long story short, I need to declare that is of type form control. Again, just make sure that you imported them in the Angular forms. Okay, so there are different things which can actually go into this form control. Just initializing would be good, but I can pass. Let's say if I want a default value, right? If I want a default value, it would actually go in here. Let's say I want to simply say it's of type course name, and the default value is course name. It can go down here. But initially, I don't want the user, I don't want to show any default value in that. So I would simply say null. And another advantage is actually I can specify the validators down here. And simply I would say validator start required. So instead of defining all of them here, I initially would define what are all the variables which would actually go into my form in here. in the form group, and all of those individual tags are form controls. Okay, so the next thing I need is course description. So I will simply say that, and again the same format, form controls, and which is of type null, and not type null, but if I don't want to enter any default value, I would just simply pass null. And if I want to, I would just specify that. Anyways, if I don't want this to be a required field, I don't even have to specify that because those are optional parameters. And let's say I want to also get that time per course. And let's say this is new form control. And let's say I want this to be of type number, or so I can simply specify 1, 2, or something like that. Is that any questions about any of these? Again, this doesn't have to be type, but it probably would be a number, right? I would say time per course in days. And that would be a number. Anyways, I want that to have a default value of 1, so I can say that, and I can just do that. So any questions so far? Why are we, or what is this? Again, this is standard syntax. I can, apart from specifying just a validator is required, I can also specify other values like validators dot max value. Like, for example, if I'm giving a name, right? I don't want it to be more, I don't want that to exceed a particular value. So I can also give max length down here.
I mean, the remaining attributes, whatever we want to add.
Sorry, what was that?
That means whatever the attributes we wanted to give, that we can give here.
Yep, whatever values we want to get back, we would just give them here. Are you asking about validators? I'm sorry.
Yeah, in HTML we used to give the attributes like the text, length of the name, like that. We used to give that.
Yeah, I can just specify them here.
Yeah, the validator.
Saying this would, yeah, I can specify as validators.
Okay.
Again, by default, it comes with different ones. One is required. I have that. I can specify that to be of email type. Again, you know what patterns are, right? Regex.
No, I don't know pattern.
Okay. Regex or patterns are, I can sometimes, let's say email is a standard pattern, right? But they're just thinking of an example. So in certain situations, let's say it's a password, right? If it's a password, you want it to have a uppercase letter, a lowercase letter, a special character, number, so on and so forth, right?
Yes.
Whenever you want to specify something as such, I can use something called pattern. And in pattern, I can specify what pattern I want to have. Again, I would say most of us won't actually remember what how to write patterns, but another thing you can actually look up is for regex. I would simply say Angular, let's say password, right? I would do that, and it would just show me, let's say, regex is regular expressions. Are you familiar with regular expressions? It just is it okay? Yeah. So regular expressions is I would define a pattern. Let's say I'm trying to use it for a password, so I would simply copy I would say it's of max and type, but also validator start pattern, and I would specify that pattern here. So it's as simple as that. So if I want any special regular expression, I would just paste it here. And this is, again, using reactive forms is a recommended way of doing it, even though I would also be going through template-driven forms or template forms, where it's a little different, not much different. But okay, let us get back to here. So one of all the changes I made on TypeScript, right? But how would I specify that to HTML page, right? I mean, let's say if I have 10 different forms, how would I know which form I'm actually binding this one to, right? So in order to do that, in the form, okay, I would actually, there is a same thing as I have here. So I have to specify what is that. It's a form group, right? I have to specify it's a form group, and I just have to specify the name of it. And here, the name is course form. Okay, and usually I would have a type button submit there. I would have a click event here, right? Simply say click equal to, and I would specify whatever the function name is, like let's say submit details, and I would have that here. But in reactive forms, I wouldn't have this one here. I would rather have all the details here. Again, I don't know where it's at. So I would, and all the events I want to bind to whenever something like a click happens, I have to specify it in the form. And it would be of type ng submit equal to whatever thing I have here, the function. But let us also define that here. So apart, similar to what I've defined here, form group, and whatever form group I've defined here, there are other things I have to define as well. So in here, I have an ID, right? Apart from ID, I also need to specify, again, I'm saying form control, right? Something similar, I have to specify the same, something similar in the HTML page as well. So it's form control name equal to, and whatever I specify here. So if it's a course name, or if it's something else, that one. So this is how I would actually relate the TypeScript, whatever I have in TypeScript, with the HTML using form groups and form control names. So similar to that, whatever I have here, I would also have the rest of them here. So it's not just course name, it's course description, right? And also time for course. Any questions about it's pretty straightforward, most of it. So this is the number. Since I've assigned the value of 1 here, right, form control 1, and that is what it has it here as a default value. I can, if I specify something down here as well, let's say, automatically changes down here. So I can have a default value, or if I choose not to, I would simply pass null. Okay, And coming back down here, if I want to also show an error, a particular error down here, this is how I would do. So let's say I want error to be shown for this input one if this is for validation again. Let's say for this course name, they forgot to enter something, or they didn't enter the right value. In those cases, if I want to show an error, I can actually do that. Again, it's basically ngIf, and they have a first thing. It's a form type. I mean, I need to get access to the form. Dot get, and in here in get, I would try to get whatever our form control is. If that is invalid, I want to show a message here. So I would say, please enter a valid name. Course name, valid course name. So it's actually showing up down here. Why? Oh, another one. I don't want that to be shown initially, but only if the person taps out, right? I don't want to initially show that. So, and for some reason that doesn't work either. Why? Also time for course. And there's one. Let me actually check what is going on. Yeah, I have something. Create property of get. Same thing here and here. Okay, name. My bad. Okay. Once I tab out, I want to show code, error code. Anyways, also this doesn't have any good style, so let's say background color, or just the color would be red for validation. So have that. Please enter a valid course name. Anyways, so this is how I can validate something. Again, whenever I want to get access to our form, I can simply say the form name and get, and the value of the form control name, whatever it is. And invalid or valid is simply, since I said this is required, and since they didn't actually have anything here, that is a invalid, right? If I type enter something in here, this is a valid value. Similar to that, again, touch means you don't usually, whenever you look at forms, right, you don't want to actually show something initially, but you only want to show a particular value, like say this field is valid or not. Like, let's say create new term. So you see that, right? Initially, I don't want to show this field is required, but only when I try to go to that field, I need to show that, right? So let's say I'm doing that, and I forgot, I've tabbed out of that. Only then I want to show this validation error. So I'm trying to do something similar here. I can do that by saying dot touched. So I'm just checking if I actually came to this control, and also when it's invalid, then I want to show a error. So it's a simple validation. I can add the same thing wherever I want to. I can use a similar, same sort of, format again for the rest of the fields if I want to. Any questions about any of these? Or how we've done the validation?
No, Anvesh. So both the cases have to be true. I mean, invalid and touched.
I mean, not necessarily, but it depends on what you want. Let's say I want to initially show the error, like even before they actually enter anything, right?
Okay.
So I would simply say, in that case, if I don't want whenever they tabbed out, but rather I want to show it initially itself, I would remove that touch. But if I want to only show the error when they come here and forget something, okay. So then I want to use touched.
Okay.
Again, this is not a standard way of doing it. I mean, this is one way of doing it. Again, if you want to see how to validate, let's say, a form control, you can find n number of ways online. Anyways, this is one way of doing it. I have a simple, very simple form here. I don't have a complicated form, but if you have a complicated form, it would have 10 different text boxes with styling and everything. This one is something simple, but anyways, let us, so ng on submit details. Right now I'm not doing anything here, but let's say console.log. I just want to see what are all the values in course form. So I will do that. And so going back here, let's say course name is course name. Course description is description. And course is 500 days. And I mean, no course would be that long, but anyway. So once I click on that, it went to submit details and it console logged our course form, whatever. And you can see here, it got form group dot value, right? Dot course description is where the description is. Form group dot value dot course name is where I have the course name. And similarly, what any other values I have, they would simply be in the same way. So if I want to get access to form name or course name, course form dot, one way of doing it, I can simply say get, and I can specify that, and I can simply say value of that. Okay, that is one way of doing it. Another way of doing it, dot value dot whatever parameter I have here. So I will simply say course name here. In which case, if I have a course name here, and submit, and it simply says course name. So on and so forth. So this is how I would actually create a form in a reactive form. Okay, and similar to this one, I also have, let us also create a template form. So ng-gc template. It is not much different than what we've discussed so far. There are some differences though. So one thing I don't have to do is whenever I create a template form, before actually doing that, let us also get that into our app component. And let's say this is a reactive form. And let me put this in a div. And then let me create another div. And let me call that template form. Okay. Okay, right now I don't have anything in the template form, but it would be, let me go back here. Okay, main difference is I don't have to create any of these course form, form group or form control, and I don't have to define any of these. So instead of, so let me go back here, told you reactive forms, the form is created in TypeScript, right? And that is where I would define everything. And template-driven forms, most of the changes are in HTML. So whatever changes I do, they would be in HTML. Another thing you maybe haven't noticed is, okay, here I have course name, form control name, course name, and I simply say required. And also for course description, I simply say required, right? And let's go back here, right? And for course description though, I didn't say it's required. I simply say null, and I didn't specify anything. In spite of that, right, I can have something in here, and in course description, I don't need to have anything, right? I can simply submit the form because I'm actually defining the form not in the HTML page, but rather in the TypeScript. So if I want this to be required, I would have to specify this one again here. So that is the main difference. So I don't need to have any of these down here, but rather I would define everything and anything I need for the form in our TypeScript. So, okay. So coming back to here, as I mentioned, I would define everything in my HTML page. So again, I need a form. Again, similar to what I have before, I would have ng submit in here. So on submit. But I don't have to define it to be a form group. So let's say I have a find the complications. Let's say I have a label. Okay, I'll just copy paste some code and I'll explain you what I'm doing here. So a little tedious. Okay, so I have submit. Okay, I'll discuss why do we have this one here. But anyways, the main difference between what we have in here versus here is I don't have to specify it to be a form control name, but rather I just have to specify it of ng model. Okay, that is how I would actually get the value back from my whatever name I specified. So when I say ng model and when I say course name, the whatever value I have in the name for whatever value I have for this attribute name, right? And here I have course name. That would be the form value. Let's say if I want to access, let's say course name. Okay. There are a few things you have to specify. First one is ng model. Okay. I'll get back to why do we have this one here. But ng model is one thing I have to specify. Another thing I have to specify is name. So when I'm trying to access this form in the TypeScript, let's say down here, I would actually access using that particular value. So in here, I haven't defined ng on submit. So let me on submit. And here, this is also a form, but it's an ng form. Ng form is nothing but an Angular form. So if I want to if I want to know the value of whatever they have entered in here in this particular text box, I would simply say I would access the form dot again course name, not course name directly, but dot value dot course name, whatever I've specified. In that way, it's almost similar to what we have in reactive form, right? I would simply specify that dot value and whatever value I want to access. Here it's the same thing, form dot value dot course name, but this is of type ng form, and in here this is of type form group. That is the only difference. Okay, so in order to access any value, I need to specify ng model. It simply says I need to know the value of this particular, let's say, whatever tag I have here. Let's say in here I have it's of type text. So if I want to get value, whatever I entered in this type text, I need to specify this ng model and whatever I have in the name. So here, since I have the course name, that is what I need to specify. Similar to that, again, for the rest of the fields as well. So I have a course description, name, and ng model. And I have a course amount for name and ng model. So if I want to access course description, I would simply go here again. It would be almost same. All of this would be same. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. Down here would be course description. So simply I can say course name is and course description is and form ng form dot value dot course name. If we get that ng model, I need to specify that so that it Angular actually knows I'm trying to get something from here, from this particular input or any other tag down here. So those are the two things I have to specify, and I can access it in here. Again, if you remember what hash and name, right? Whatever name I have here. Do you remember that?
What on which?
Do you remember what hash here is, or
ID?
Sorry?
It acts like an ID for the whole
Yep.
program.
Yep, that's right. So yeah, so I'm passing the ng form back to my submit button. So this is how I would do it. So I can pass it through the function, whatever ng submit I have here, or you also remember we had something called view child, right? All of the variables I want to access, or whatever I have defined, whatever IDs I've defined here. If I want to access that, or simply use view child. That is another one, another way of getting access to that. But again, this is of type. What is it of type? Any form. So if I want to access the form, either I can define that ID, ng form, pass it to the submit, or I can just use the view child. And here, if I want to get another value, I would simply say course amount is, and I would simply say this dot course form dot value dot whatever I have defined here. So here I've defined it as course amount. Dot course amount. So either either I can access it directly from here, or I can also access it using view child. So there are different ways. Again, if I want to display an error, I would do it in a similar way as I've done before for reactive forms. So here I'm trying to get the ng model, right, of this particular text box, and I'm passing it to course name, and simply here I'm checking if I have any errors. In case of reactive forms, I would simply say whatever variable name dot invalid, right? That is what I have here. And here, instead of saying invalid, I would say if it has an errors. Again, only use template forms when it's absolutely necessary, but otherwise use a reactive form. This is more standard way of doing, creating forms, accessing forms, creating validations, and all of that for any of the forms. Unless it's very absolutely necessary. If you think in this example, it makes more sense, then use a template form, but otherwise use a reactive form. And yeah, any questions about any of these?
Anvesh, can you explain again about view child and when to use which, when to use template forms?
Validation in template form, is that what you're asking? I mean, one thing you asked for is view child. Yeah. Another thing is it validation?
No, when to use, I mean, for a HTML program, when to use reactive forms and when to you go for a
use template form. Okay. So view child here, basically, whenever I try to use here, let's say I have defined an ID using hash, right? If I want to get access to that particular value, right? that is how I would do that. I would simply say view child, and I would access that variable. But here I know this form is of type ng form, right? So I'm saying view child. I'm trying to access this particular by using this ID since it's F. If I have something else, let's say form, let's say course form, right? In that case, I would actually have the same thing here. So whatever ID I'm specifying here, if I want to get access in the TypeScript, this is how I would get access to that. I would simply define an ID, access that here using viewChild and the name of that.
Okay.
And I would simply, but I know this is of type form, so I would simply define the name and I would say it is of type ng form. And I'm in here, I'm showing you different ways of actually accessing the same value I have in the form. One way is I've passed it on submit the ng form, right? So I already have the value here. So I'm accessing that down here. Okay. Another way is using viewChild. I've already defined what the course form is. It's an ng form, which is nothing but the form I have here. So I would simply say dot value and whatever value I want to get from here. The value would be nothing but what I have defined in the name. So name equal to and whatever value I have here. That is what I want to get here. So I would simply say dot value dot that particular field name. So, okay. And another question you asked is when do we use reactive forms and when do we use template forms? I would say 90% of the time you would use reactive forms. Only because, again, going back to our example or the initial discussion, saying these are structured, right? Since these are structured, if I have, let's say, let me create another file. Let's say this is course, right? Value.ts, right? I have export class and course value, and I have three values here. One is course name, which is a type string. I can assign a default value of empty string and have a course description and course amount here, which is of type number. So since this is of type number, I would want to default it to be 0. So this is how we would actually access, right? Most of the times, whenever we have, whenever we are trying to pass data, we would create a class, and in here also, in this, I hope, so this is reactive form. I would define a particular variable, let's say like course values, right? Let's say course value. I've defined it here, and I want to assign the values to here, right? So I would simply say course value dot, let's say equal to new course value. Sorry, variable, missing something. Values, okay. Okay, this dot course value. Sorry, wasting time instantiating it here. Right, let me do it here. So Usually, whenever we want to assign these values and pass them back to, let's say, an API, like a HTTP request, HTTP call, or something, I would want to get course value equal to, again, so and so, right? I want to do this, right? This seems to be more, let's say, structured, and that is why most of the times, whenever we are trying to pass data, or also, let's say whenever I'm trying to initialize form, right? I'm saying this, but I want to also instantiate some values to our form group, in which case having structured way of doing it is better. And also, whenever we are trying to assign values, we would actually do it in our TypeScript file. So let's say have that and just start course form dot, let's say, value dot, let's say, course name equal to something down here. Let's say I want to pass course name. Usually I wouldn't pass a course name, but I would simply say this one, right? This particular value, right? So since I want to, since I have a way of actually assigning, not always we would enter some values, right? Sometimes, let's say if I'm going to my Facebook page or something, some of the values are already defined in this down here, right? All of these. So better way of saying is, you don't always enter some values, but sometimes the forms are automatically filled in for you, right? If you're trying to access, let's say, an old form where you enter some details, we would already have those values in that form, right? Sorry, you were saying. So if I want to do that, using reactive forms is an easy way. So I can first initialize that, later on assign all of those values, and simply just by saying dot value dot course, so on and so forth. So since this is an easier way of doing, most of the time, like I would say 90% of the time, people would actually go for reactive forms. And only in cases, I haven't found any particular case where I would be using, at least not in my workplace. But if you think this is actually necessary, again, it may depend on what you're working on. If you think just using a template form, not having to, define all of these again, and in those cases, I would just use template form. But I would say 90% of the cases, I would use a reactive form, because I can not just create that, but I can also assign values for all of those form values. So it's an easier way of doing it in down here. So does that answer your question, or is this still confusing?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, cool. So sorry, I was looking at something else. So there are a few more things you may want to learn on your own whenever you get a chance. So I've shown you how we can create forms, how we can access that. But usually, whenever we create forms, we would actually combine forms with observables and also with services. And usually we would do that by making API calls to some other service by making API calls. So let's say a particular user is trying to come to the current form, trying to see what values they have submitted before. they would get to the form, and initially they would have everything initialized here, and also all of the values instantiated here. So in order to know what values I'm actually getting in here, I have to make a service call, right? I have to make a call to an external API. I need to get that data, and I need to pass it to the component. And since this is a service call, right? And since this is a call to an external API, usually the values would be observables. So I've shown you all of these things independently, but in real world scenarios, you would actually combine all of them together. And yeah. So what I want to say is when you get a chance, I would encourage you to go and look at how to make API calls. So it would make more sense what is going on in here. So that is one thing I haven't gone through, but everything else I did go through, make API calls and service. And it isn't that difficult. It would be similar to what we have defined yesterday. Using observables, I would simply have, get data, right? Handle data, handle error, handle completion when we make a API call. It's the same thing. It's how we make a call to API would be different. It's basically the syntax is different. In our case, we were just showing a function call, but an API call, it would be a HTTP request, which would be slightly different. So anyways, once you get a chance to do that, how to make an API calls from any service. With that, this would be all of it. But I want to ask you another question. Do you want to work on or create a bigger project and go through all of these concepts? Are you interested in that? Because whatever I've taught you are an individual class of whatever I've done. Those are basics, and everything would make more sense once you actually do a bigger project. So
yeah, Anvesh, I'm interested to do the project.
Okay, so again, there are two things, and one thing I want to mention is you can create your own project.
Okay.
Project where I would also give you an example what you want to do, or what would be a better experience once you actually develop this. You can actually you would develop more skills. That is what I want to say. So the creating own project would be creating the Amazon. I wouldn't say duplicate, but similar to Amazon. Okay. Create your own project, which is similar to Amazon. You don't have to create all the functionality, but there are some key things you may want to achieve, you would want to achieve. So look down here, right? So the Amazon is on the top left, and I have navigation items here, right? And on the down here, I have
image scrolling.
Yeah, why do I keep forgetting the name? Carousel. I have a carousel here, and again, a lot of images down here, but that is one thing. Another thing is like, let's say if I want to go to a particular product, right? Once I click on that, it is redirecting me to a different page, right? it's not just doing that. It also is showing me few pictures down here. Once I click on it, it would do that. And onto the center, I have some sort of description, and also I have add to cart. Right, I would select the size, and it says it doesn't, it isn't available. Weird. So I would say add to cart. I also have a buy now, and it is also showing me, basically these details like free delivery, so and so fastest delivery. And once I click on add to cart, it is also adding it to cart, right? I can actually go to the cart page and I can see whatever items I've added here. Let's say I also want to add, let me go to today's details. I want to add some keyboards. Vendor, I would say add to cart. And now if I go to cart, it is not just showing one item, it's showing multiple items. So this is sort of dynamic, right? It is not static. So few things you may want to do is similar UI as Amazon. Again, adding, going to a product page and adding into a cart. Cart automatically updates, right? Going to product page and adding it to cart. Going to product page, displaying, which displays basic details. And cart automatically updates when we add to cart. And also cart is its own page. And I can also check out, right? Check out the page. If you can actually get these things done, you would, using Angular, you would learn a lot. And whenever you're trying to achieve UI as Amazon, right, you would be using Bootstrap. So you would learn Bootstrap in here. You would learn routing in here. Okay. You would learn services. You can actually achieve this using services. And also you can make an API call here. Usually that is how they will do it. Backend part of its own page. So you can use a lot of also, forgot to mention another thing. When they're trying to check out, right? Checking out, they would have two options, right? Option A would be guest checkout. Okay, so I have a form here, and they would enter all the details. And depending on that, we would actually do a few things. And another one is a sign in or sign up. So sign in is where that is also a form, right? And sign up is also a form. Sign in form is smaller. They would probably enter like a username and a password. Sign up has more details, which is similar to guest checkout. Anyways, yeah. If you can actually do this, you would learn a lot. So anyways, any questions?
Yeah, I'll try all these step by step on this. First,
Yeah, I mean,
front end thing.
Mm-hmm.
And slowly we'll do the step-by-step process.
Yep. So this this should actually take some time as well. It wouldn't be done in a week or so. It probably would take a couple of weeks to get this done. But if you can actually get this done, you probably you would definitely learn a lot of concepts. Again, not learn, but you would go through the whatever we have gone through so far, understand them even better. So this is a bigger assignment. So that is one thing. Another thing I want to mention, this is up to you. You can, if you want to, you can work on this, or you don't. I would definitely say do this. Next thing is we have our own project, which I've created. So you can work on that. Again, this is like a personal project, which is nothing but a website for V Technologies. So if you want to work on that, you can work on that. Again, this is similar. This is not similar to what Amazon does, but it's something basic. But we would also be deploying this to the web. So you can learn not just, again, this page is not as complicated as the Amazon. It only has mostly UI. That is mostly what it is. So Bootstrap and all of that. But on the top of it, we also have how to deploy a web page. And we would be going through all of that. And also how to work. We usually work when in a team. This would be creating task, assigning that, creating, having access to DevOps and all of those. So this is not much work. It's mostly UI, but you would also learn a few other things. So this one is, you would have to go through all of the things we have learned so far. So either way, you can pick and choose whatever you want. This one, I would definitely recommend you to do it because that would cover everything we have discussed. This one is up to you. If you want to work, you would probably be doing a web page and also deploying that. So anyways.
Yeah, again, we'll do the both. I'll try to do the both. But
okay.
I'll do the first one for sure.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I would be working on this, but if you want some sort of exposure to how we work in a team or how we deploy a web page, or there are a few other things which you would learn along the way, then you can work on this. So anyways, I would, let me share this. And, so it's in VTech there, and use, I mean, of course, create using Angular. That is the important thing. You don't have any backend for this. It's mostly front-end work. So, yep. Any other questions? Anything else?
So I can contact, right, if I have any questions in the middle of the project.
Sure. Yep, definitely.
Oh, thank
also,
you.
Sure. Another thing, do you use Stack Overflow, or did you use Stack Overflow before?
Yeah.
Or are you familiar with that? Okay, yeah. So this is one best place of figuring out if you have some simple questions. So this is what most of the developers use. Whenever this website is down, developers are like, they don't know what to do. I mean, they would feel like they don't know what to do. But anyways, because most of the questions, answers to our questions are from Stack Overflow. That is the best way of finding. For example, if I have how to create Angular project, if I do that, if you have a couple different ones, but the best one would be Stack Overflow. And just go there, and they would have a really good example, and also a simple way of doing it. Another thing is similar to Stack Overflow. There is also Stack Blitz. This is the best tool for Angular. So let's say how to create not Angular project, but Angular material project and Stack Blitz. If I do that, you can see it actually has created a particular project for us. It has app component.ts. Read that for us. It creates basically everything for us. And I guess because using it in incognito, it's not showing up. But usually, if you want to see all the, usually they have really good examples in StackBlitz, and you can actually write the code here, see it on the rightmost. They would show you everything. So I can modify any of these and see how it actually changes in the web page. So this is another good resource, Stack Overflow, Stack Blitz. Another thing I didn't have time to cover is material, Angular materials, components. So this is another thing you probably want to see. Whatever we have created, let's see, the last thing we have created, form class. This looks pretty basic, right? Whenever you create a web page or whenever you look at a web page, this is not how it looks like. It probably would look more like this one because they would, it's similar to Bootstrap. I wouldn't say it's the same as Bootstrap. Bootstrap is CSS, but let's say the code is same as what you have in regular HTML, but they will add mat in front of it, mat dash and option. And all of a sudden it's a material option. And but the important thing is you have to include this import wherever you're trying to use it in the HTML page. So, and this is how it would look like. A little better than basic HTML. And also they probably have some things for form. Again, this is how they would look like. And also some few advanced things. So this looks better than what I have here, right? Whatever I've created in this class, in the last class. So another thing want you to go through is this material. So let me make a note of it. Stack Overflow. Did you actually work before, or was it mostly tutoring work you've done?
No.
Sorry, which one is it? Did you work?
No, Anvesh.
Okay, is it mostly tutoring you've done, right? Is that what
It's like
it was?
What Anvesh?
No. You have some programming experience, right? Is it you have the experience because you were teaching?
Yeah.
Or were you working?
It's just like a 2 months project, Anvesh. That's it. After
Okay.
So long back.
Okay. So anyways, so we have 3 other things I want you to look at. So Angular material is one thing I would want you to go through when you get a chance. Also, forgot to mention API calls. Angular material API calls are the 2 things you have to go through. And also make sure you use the Stack Overflow and StackBlitz resources whenever it's possible. So I would really encourage you to complete the first one. Create your own project, which is similar to Amazon. Again, another thing I want to mention is have everything synced to GitHub. In that way, if you want any help, I can look at your GitHub, get the code from there, and
Yeah, sure.
And also, if you have, this is another good way of saying recruiters, this is what I've done before. And if they look at this project, and they would be like, okay, this is good. So anyway. So do you have any other questions or anything else?
No, good.
Okay, cool. So are you actually going to, what do you call, look for projects after